Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. I'm here with a very special guest, a guy that I remember when I first started reading and watching BookTube, seeing his first book all over, and it's just been one of those interviews that I it's kind of come full circle. So, Alexander Darwin, how are you today? And it's so nice to have you here.
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me. We just figured out we're not neighbors. We're both on the East Coast of the U.S. So
yes,
we both thought we were in the U.K.
Yeah, I was like, I thought you were in the UK. He's like, I thought you were in the UK.
Yeah, I expected a British accent.
No, I can totally relate. Again, like so many people that we talk to, there's so many wonderful people all over the world. So
it's great. Cool. It's an international, especially like both the indie community as well as the trad pub community. It's so international that I've just made friends with so many authors, reviewers, bloggers, etc. from places that are all around the world, which is really cool. But you never know as far as time zones with these things. It's a nightmare for some people. Like I know for some of the conference organizers or like publicists for Orbit, who my books are from. I really respect the scheduling that is done when they're trying to get like 6 different authors that are literally in many different time zones to find a good time.
It's a skill for sure. And it's a learned skill because still after doing this for a little bit and talking to so many people, it's like, okay, UK's 5 hours ahead. And then when it comes to like New Zealand, who I've talked to a few authors from there, that's a whole nother game. Same with Australia, because it's like the next day kind of thing.
Right.
But it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but we're getting there, right?
Yeah, I think Australia is almost easier in a way because it's like, all right, morning for them. The UK is tough. Like my agent is out of the UK, and we usually have our conversations where it'll be very early on my end. I'm up early anyways because of the kids, but I think then it'll be smack dab in the middle of the day for him.
Now your agent is, he's got a lot of authors that he agents, right?
Yeah, Ed Wilson. He's got R.J. Barker, and he's got Cameron Johnson, and he's got some like big name mystery authors. I think Robert Thorogood is one of them.
I just see his name all over.
Yeah, no,
I really do.
Well, that's just him doing his thing,
right? That's incredible. So a couple quick comments real quick. John, he asks this question. It's hilarious, but I think for you, this is extra special. So if you had to fight one of the books in your character, who would it be and would you win?
Oh, man, that is a good question. Thanks, John. I want to give myself a fighting chance, so it probably would not be any of the actual Grievar who are pretty far tougher than me. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of martial arts experience, but
yeah,
I'm at a stage right now where I'll like get up in the morning and like be like, oh, my back.
So, I get it.
I think how about Thalu, who's like kind of the Jabba the Hutt type character that's running the slave circles, and he's really not in great shape. And he's kind of fallen from the way of the combat code. So I think he would be, I wouldn't say he would be easy pickings, but he would be easier than many of the rest.
John, I think that's the best answer you've gotten, definitely from asking that question, because it pertains to the book in a really wonderful way, the series. We have the wonderful Beth Tabler.
Hey, Beth.
Yes, she's wonderful.
I know Beth. Awesome. All the familiar faces.
Yeah. So I guess kind of want to start at the beginning, if we could. When did you start reading at a young age, getting into literature, or did you find that a little bit later?
Yeah, definitely. My brother, I remember my older brother had gotten into like Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms, and so he was, and like just AD&D, and so I was, from the very beginning, he was like DMing and passing down those books, and I remember, just as a little brother does, always sneaking into his room. I got really into like R.A. Salvatore, Driss books, who's local here, which is awesome, and who I had I think I'd emailed him a couple, when Combat Codes was coming out, and he got back to me, which was really, really quite cool.
Yeah.
Out of Massachusetts. And Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, their whole Dragonlance series was really formative for me. And then from there, it was just, how it goes. Just you keep going. Those, yeah.
So just so you know, I like to hear those kind of foundational stories. I always ask that question because it's really different for me. I started reading when I was 29. I turned 34 this year, so I'm still like learning and finding out all of those foundational books and authors, and I feel lucky enough to get to read them for the first time.
So I'm jealous. I'm super jealous. I know some people. It's actually similar. I see a very close similarity between actually book readers and martial artists, in that a lot of people who come into it later in life, like I have a lot of students, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu students, who will come in and be like, I wish, they love it. And they're like, I wish I could have done this so much when I was so much younger and started this earlier. And the same with readers. But I actually don't think that's the case. I think it's so cool that they're coming into it, whether being a reader or a martial artist, at the time they are in their life. It's just, it is what it is. And who knows, it could have been the case where you burnt out. And you're not into it now. And so it's kind of really cool that you've found sci-fi, fantasy, or reading in general at this stage, because, it just fits.
Yeah. And I think too, to kind of add to that, and I hadn't really thought about it until you said that, I found it for a good reason. I didn't find it just because, like, I was going through something in my life. I was sick and I was in the hospital, and that's what brought me the adventure that I couldn't take physically. So I think that's a good point too. Like, if you find it a little bit later, maybe you're finding it for a more personal reason, and it may mean more at that time for you, right?
Yeah, no, that's really why I write. I don't want to just say for entertainment, but like I write so that what I like as a reader is to just immerse myself in a different world, and the escapism of it. So that I'm glad, that's awesome to hear about your journey.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and that's great. I love that that's a part of why you write. So I have somewhat of an idea of the inspiration behind Combat Codes, but I would like to just kind of ask you the inspiration behind Combat Codes.
Yeah, no. Basically, as a martial artist, I've been practicing martial arts and a fan of martial arts for quite a while. I thought there was just an underrepresentation of non-swords and sorcery worlds / magic systems / combat in all the books I'd read. I'm obviously a big fan of swords and sorcery and old school, high fantasy and all that different types of sci-fi. I just hadn't seen much that tied into what I loved, which is unarmed combat. And so I sort of the seed was the world building, and then I kind of formed the characters and the narrative from that seed.
I love that, and it kind of echoes what I've heard a lot, on this learning journey of what reading, inspiration, and writing, to write what you want to read, and yes. I feel like you took that and really did exactly that.
Yeah, and that's even now. Like, I'm working on a bunch of different projects. I've tried to keep reminding myself of that, because at the end of the day, it's gonna, like, any false starts I've ever had, things that just did not gel. The root of the issue was because it wasn't something that I personally would want to read, or that I was like super passionate about. And so I really think, of course, end of the day, you could, if you're an experienced writer, you can probably write something well in any subject, but end of the day, really, what's the point if you're not passionate about it? And it will come through to the readers, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. I think that you're right. And I, of course, I don't know that from the writing side, but from the reading side, it's like, it's very obvious when an author is speaking on something they're well versed in, and I think it just adds to the story as far as the reader becoming immersed into it and really feeling that. To be honest, like, it's hard to find that book that really takes you into the world, that just really helps you escape totally. But when you find it, you have a clear sense that the author knew what they were talking about, or is really passionate about what they're talking about. Okay, stopping in to say I'm so glad you did. It's good to see you.
Hey, Kay.
So, Combat Codes, would you give a brief kind of overview and kind of the plans with how many books, how many installments are going to be in the series, and maybe the subgenre you would closely categorize it as?
Yeah, so the premise is a world where nations resolve their disputes not through wars. There's been an armistice of sorts, and instead single combat, like gladiatorial unarmed combat duels between representatives of each nation, which are called the Grivar, who have this code of honor and code of conduct, much like Bushido in samurai culture, called the Grivar. They represent their nations, and everything is on the line. So resources and people and elemental reserves are all on the line for these single combat duels. And there is two primary POVs in the first book. One is kind of the aging, grizzled champion, ex-champion, who's a bit fallen onto hard times and is disillusioned with the system, the both political as well as the codes where they've fallen in society. And then there's a young, mysterious protagonist, teenage protagonist, who is a bit of a prodigy, rather. And he also becomes a bit of a protege. And these two characters, their paths intersect, and there's a lot of stuff that I myself love as a reader in that book. An academy setting, mentor-mentee relationship, and the first book came out last June from Orbit, US and UK, June, about a year from around this time, a year ago. And then the second book came out last December, and the third book, Blacklight Born, which is the final book in the trilogy, will be out next December, so 2024, near the end of the year.
And that'll be the final book, right? It'll be a trilogy.
Yeah, it's a trilogy. That's what Orbit acquired, a trilogy, and I'm leaving it open as to whether there could be prequels or sequels. It really depends on how the first three books do, and
sure,
really, as far as career trajectory, what comes next.
Absolutely. No, I get that for sure. Now, also, tell me if I'm wrong, but you were an independent author at one time?
Yeah, so the book was originally self-published, and it was it did well in SPFBO, Mark Lawrence's contest. SPFBO 6, so 2020, the year of the pandemic, very memorable year. But that was a very positive part of that year.
That's wonderful.
It went into the finals, and then after that, it got picked up by Orbit Books.
I love that, and of course I knew that before asking, but I love anybody's story that has to do with the SPFBO. Not only as an author do I like to read Mark Lawrence, but I think he's doing wonderful things for the self-pub.
No, man. I mean, what a landmark. I mean, now I think we're on at number 10. 10. So that's a big one. That's super cool.
And he gets called Stiff Box.
Right. There should be like a battle of all the different seasons. Bring back all the finalists.
Oh my gosh, I love that you. I said that to somebody. I don't remember who I said to. I said every winner should that should be the contest now, right? We get like a final round or something. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so cool to see where all the, not only, finalists, semifinalists, or just authors who have kind of started off there. It's really cool to follow so many different career trajectories, whether it's in indie or trad, or both, the hybrid, which a lot of authors are doing now. It's just such a landmark competition. I think it really changed the game, really.
Yeah. When I first started, which really it wasn't that like a year ago, like almost exactly a year ago, I started interviewing authors such as yourself, and that's once I learned of SPIFBO, that's kind of how I shaped my interviews. I didn't know, it's like a unified place where you know everything is self-published. And the different variances of stories and subgenres that are kind of coming out to where it's, if there's a book that's in your mind and you want to read it, you could probably find it, so it's super incredible. So how was that experience going from, how did it happen? I'm just curious. Did you just get a call one day like, hey, I see you did really well in SPIFBO or Orbit. Would you like, how did that happen for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because those are the things I remember thinking about a lot, like, prior to going trad. But it's actually through a Twitter communication with one of Orbit's editors, who's no longer there, Hillary, who left in that big exodus from trad in 2021. But she was, I had posted something and she was interested, and then we started emailing, and that was actually, and then I ended up getting an agent from that, and so it was kind of reverse engineered. But yeah, back in those days, I'm not much on Twitter anymore. Every once in a while I'll stop in, but I think Twitter at one point in time, and probably still, I don't want to, like, I'm not in it anymore, so I don't really know. But I think it is a pretty powerful tool in the for publishing in general. Because I know a lot of the editors, agents, industry folk, indie folk are all a part of that ecosystem.
It is. That's what I use, and that's anybody that watches or I would agree with you. It's a pretty powerful tool as far as keeping the community together, and also it's a nice place to kind of not only meet people, but it's a really supportive community too. So I would agree with you. Brian, yes, I did. I would definitely get back to you, my friend. He's another guy that's been back and forth, indie and trad. Brian.
Yeah. Anderson. Hey, Brian, how's it going, man?
Nice to see you, brother. Anytime I see that Harley and that long hair, I like Brian's here, man. That's an awesome picture. That's a wonderful. So, as far as
I'm getting beard jealousy now from you two.
Oh man, yeah. It's okay. Like it was longer. I'm a little sore about it still. Yeah. I went to the barber, man, and it was a new barber, and I trusted him, and he really did me dirty. He did. He trimmed way too much off. Yeah, right.
No.
I was like, man, this ain't cool. I didn't say anything.
You can't break the pact like that with your barber. That's a sacred pact when they don't.
Oh, yeah. It is. I get it. Absolutely. But hey, it all grows back, right?
Yeah, you still have it. I saw a video the other day where it was like a toddler. I know you have young kids just like me. And the dad had a mustache, apparently, since the toddler was born, and he shaved it. Yeah. And like this kid, he like looked at his dad like he was an alien. Yeah. He started to cry. He just was like, and the dad had to, it was both cute as well as a little bit sad. Dad had to explain, it's just hair, it's going to grow back. And he was like, for the kid was just like, really could not
I've seen similar videos. Like my wife's like, I remember having that conversation. I said, if I ever, like my kids have never seen me, even my oldest one, with my beard shaved. And if I did, they would like run away from me. Yeah. Because I've seen videos like that. It's terrifying. But it's funny how kind of kids have that mental image of who you are. And all of a sudden, I mean, it shocks us as adults, You see somebody that's had a beard forever, and it's like, whoa, they're a totally different person. So what's your writing process look like when you're really in the grind, if you will? Are you a pantser, an outliner? And do you have like a daily goal?
Yeah, so I've waffled around a little bit, pantser, plotter, but I've really come to find in the past few years that I'm definitely a pantser, because I have tried to outline, I've tried to plot, I've tried to do the whole Scrivener thing. It's just not, it just like you hear with other authors, I've listened to interviews. It just does not work for me.
Mhm.
The energy that I use, because again, I have tried to outline and I have outlined, the energy I use to outline is the same energy reserve that I need to use to draft. And so it takes like, and so I do think there's a medium that I can find where, if I have beats that I want to hit that are more just nebulous, then it is good to have a little bit of directionality. But if I get too much of that, it kind of takes away from the momentum that I use to draft. And so that's drafting, of course. And then once I get through a first draft, then it's just on to a lot more methodical editing, many different passes, moving stuff around, cutting a ton of stuff out. And that I think I've heard from a ton of authors that is often the most enjoyable process. That's actually where I am on my current WIP. And that's fun because you have the mold, you have the shape of the sculpture that you're putting together, and then you get to work with the material. But like before that, it's nothing. There's no raw material to even work with. So that's the part where you're just kind of like barreling through the darkness without any destination. And again, because I'm a pantser discovery writer, whatever you want to call it, it's my own. That's creating my own problem, but it's the way that I enjoy it. It's the way that I like to, I find out who the characters are. They lead for me. And that's what makes it fun. Like end of the day, if I outline too much, it's just not fun. And then I lose the mojo.
That makes total sense. It does. Cause again, I'm very, very new to wanting, I would love to publish a book one day. And that's kind of the reason I ask a lot of the questions that I do ask, is because I'd love to learn. And if I want to learn, there's probably a lot of people that want to learn. So that's kind of the way I ask questions. I do remember sitting down just recently and finding out very quickly that I can't just discovery write or pants, because I lose its cohesiveness. For instance, like I had maybe written or typed 2,000, 3,000 words, and just couldn't remember from day to day where I'm leading. And of course, once you're so deep into a project, you can't just reread it every day. I mean, that would take all of your time. So I think the next try is going to be somewhat in the middle. I want to have some plot points and, but also what you called the mojo, like have that creative juice, that creative freedom to lead your way through those plot points without putting shackles on.
Yeah, and I've heard for a lot of authors that is something that works. And just like if you have an outline, just be aware that it's not binding. Because it's an outline. End of the day, your characters may pull you in a different direction. As long as you kind of have maybe a lot of people like to have a final destination that they're going to arrive at. But yeah.
I like I like that point too, because I've also heard people, hey, I even did that, like plot points. I mean, and my characters took me somewhere else. So if you go too deep in the outline and that happens, you kind of have to change a whole lot more than you would have,
so characters will do that. And that's the fun part. I kind of, when that happens, I almost know something is. That's the fun. I know something's going on when the characters are taking me in a different direction, that I'm like, holy shit, I did not expect that. That's the part that I really actually enjoy. When I look back on it, all said and done, those are the moments that are really pretty fun and I think keep me going.
That it does sound I think that's probably the most attractive part to me, looking forward to having a moment like that where all of a sudden these stories are coming together, the characters are working, and it's kind of just like you're coasting in this creative zone, so I'm looking forward to
I think though, it's, for me at least, and I think for a lot of authors, everything is mainly subconscious, like below the surface. And so it makes sense that you know all the stuff that you've read, whatever you've been watching, conversations just walking around the street is percolating in your brain, and it comes out in your writing. And so I think, for me, outlining it just constrains that a little bit too much for me personally.
I like that theory. I do. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Our environment is very influential on a lot of things, especially our creativeness. Oh my goodness. So I was really excited. So somebody walks up to you and this happens. What? Oh, I had it queued up. Look at me. I had it. Oh, here it is. So what happened to this poor guy? What's going on with this?
That guy actually could kick my ass.
Okay.
That's one of my buddies. His name is George. So
Awesome.
He's from Georgia, the country Georgia, not the state Georgia.
Oh wow.
And he is a professional ballerina. Like now he was a choreographer for the Boston Ballet. He has his own conservatory in Dallas, and you'd be like at that level of ballet. It is like you're talking top level athlete, in the world, like especially in something like grappling. I think there's certain sports that translate to better grapplers, like gymnasts and rock climbers, and obviously all the wrestling, judo, all that stuff, but that's already grappling. And ballet, it's just amazing, the flexibility, the coordination. And so, but he also is like a lifelong martial artist, and he is an awesome training partner. He's not around here. He's in Dallas nowadays, but I miss him as a training partner. George from Georgia.
Well, good. I love to learn about you, George.
And actually, that picture was at the Boston Ballet studio. We were doing some sort of photo shoot with the ballet company, which was really funny.
It's people. I think there's a misconception of ballet, and I'm glad you brought that up, because NFL players do ballet. I mean, it just zeroes you in on balance and so many other things. Of course, I don't know a lot about it, but having played football and potentially was going to play college football, that was a recommendation to kind of help you with that. So I can just
I love all the cross training. Like I know, actually football is a good base for grappling too, especially if you're like a lineman or somewhere on the offensive line or the defensive line, because you are doing a ton of grappling. I know there is like crossover between like wrestling, like American, Greco-Roman or freestyle wrestling and football, given that it's, contact sport right there.
Yeah. I'm 6'5", and in high school I was like 280.
What was your position?
Offensive, defensive tackle.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, I was always that's what I did, and I miss it. I loved it, and but it sure does take a toll on you after I played since I was 5. But yeah, it's a good time, and I've considered doing a martial art as an adult, and I still might.
Grappling will be your thing. I'm sure you still remember all that time on the offensive line.
Yeah. You learn different techniques to keep the hands off of you and center of gravity or center of balance and all that fun stuff. So I think I would do well. I think I just have to pull the trigger. So that's awesome. How has jiu-jitsu helped you as well, just as a man living life? Is it giving you the discipline? What are some of those things, one of the skills that you have been able to use from that?
Yeah, and I think it's different stages in my life, because I really started when I was like 18 or 19. So I'm 41 this month. And so it's been a long journey, and obviously I've had to change how I do it, getting a little bit older. Your body, as you said, your body doesn't hold up like used to. I remember when I was in my 20s, I could like train every day. I would get like pretty not good injuries and be able to like snap back from them in a record time. You'd like go out drinking or whatever. You get up the next morning, you'd be fresh. It's like people in their 20s right now, you got to realize you're a superhuman.
Is it possible though to realize it when you're 20?
I don't think you can.
I don't think
that's the rub.
Right.
But what I've realized now, and even for the past 15 years, is that what I actually value is just the community, like much like the book community we're talking about, but in a much less spread out way. These are my training partners are my friends. They're kind of like what we would call like the third place outside of my home and my work, where I can spend my time and, and have a healthy kind of lifestyle. It literally, I tell my kids, I'm going to have a play date. I'm going to play with my friends.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
We grapple, we try to strangle each other, break each other's arms, but like these are my buddies, and it gives me some like the social connection that I really need. And I think that's for a lot of people that, guys or girls that are, especially like you're maybe you move towns, maybe you or it's different, moving from one stage of your life to another, and you often can find yourself like, my high school friends, my college, university friends, they're no longer around, and it's like for a lot of people, they end up finding a home in martial arts. What I do, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in specific. I think it really helps. Like, and you have people that are from all different walks of life, which is really cool. You have like law enforcement, you have like white collar, blue collar professionals, like college students, authors. You get everybody, and it's all on the mats together. And I find you don't find that in many other places. Usually, people, it's like because of interests or jobs or class or whatever, they're kind of grouped in their own kind of sectors,
clicks, if you will. Yeah, sectors, exactly. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think you hit an important topic that's even going to encourage me more to look towards doing a martial art, because look, like you said, I'm in a town now, like my wife grew up here. I did not. We have kids, so I don't have a lot of social time. The social time I have is usually like this, what we're doing, which is great.
Yep.
But I think, especially remembering working out and being exhausted makes you feel good. Especially when you can do it with people that you grow to form a brotherhood with, or camaraderie, or whatever it is that you'd like to call it. Not having a lot of friends here, doing something like that, I think would be very beneficial for those reasons you just said.
No, I totally, I highly recommend it. Just, find a local jiu-jitsu gym. You got to find one that vibes with you, but each has its own vibe, it can be a big difference maker for a lot of people.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pursue that, and I'll let you know which gym I find.
If you need any recs or anything, let me know.
Oh, for sure, man. That'd be great. That's awesome. 1 second here. My stupid thing just went off. Oh, here we go. I always pre-write my questions, and then I accidentally just exited it out. Sorry. So what are some other, do you have any other hobbies than writing? I mean, you're a dad.
I don't have time.
Right.
Yeah, it's just between the kids who are, as we talked about before, just they're all young, and every day is kind of like a race to the finish. It's like, even with writing, a lot of people are, I think I went over one of your questions, which was like writing routine. And I used to think I was like a morning writer, and I think I do write the best in the morning when my brain is just like waking up and it's not yet fully like concrete. But I can't do that anymore. It's just, I don't have the schedule to do it. We get the kids to bed. Yeah. I'm tired as shit. I don't want to write, and I just have to do it. And then, for grappling or for training, it's a little different. I'll usually try to get something in during the day. And then really don't have, like, I have like dads at the end of the bus, like waiting at the bus stop, that are trying to talk to me about sports. I'm like, if it's pre like 2010, I can talk to you about like random players and various, I call it like ball sports now. And they're like, ball sports. I cannot even fit any of like, anything else in my brain right now. I'm open-minded, but it's just nothing. I don't have anything for it.
No, I totally get it. I think the only other hobbies that I have right now, other than kind of, I love to interview, but with the kids, is my oldest is beginning to understand how to play some games with me on the PlayStation. So every now and then we'll do that. But you said, it's once you become a parent of young children, extra things really don't occur, which is great. To a point, it's great. But I think that extra part that you represent so well, especially during this interview, was the social aspect of having that extra, like for you, the jujitsu. Um, Speaking of which, was it hard for you to, since there's not a lot that I know of, uh, weaponless combat based fantasy books, was it hard to incorporate that into a story that would um, vibrate with those people who love like classic fantasy or epic fantasy of that nature? Was it hard to incorporate it?
Yeah, well, again, I just wrote what I knew, and so like a lot of people consider the combat codes like science fantasy, actually, where it has a lot of technological sci-fi aspect. I take a lot of actually like from video games, JRPGs like Final Fantasy. I've always said I've realized I take a lot of inspiration from those worlds that are not pigeonholed to fantasy or science fiction, where it's just like that's just what I write, and even other works that I've started on. I just find myself gravitating towards not being pigeonholed to one. So I never really was like going after like hard fantasy or high fantasy fans. That was never like an intention. And I think there are always going to be readers that like, if it's your thing that you really like dragons and swords and sorcery, like that's your thing. Like, sure. And obviously you might read out of that, but like, I'm not going to try to, there is a dragon on the cover though. Now that's more on the publisher's end, I think.
No, I love how you're. I've only read the first book, and I'm getting ready to start the second. But I love how you do put that science fantasy into it. I guess writing what you wanted to write was the perfect answer, because it wouldn't be hard to write what you want to write, right?
Right. It all comes down to marketing in the end. Hey, Matt.
Matt says, Alexander, what is your favorite Final Fantasy game? And he's going to judge the shit out of you.
Oh, yes. Well, just as it is with sports, I am stuck in a bygone era of my Final Fantasy game. Because again, I like see all the new games, and especially RPGs and remakes of Final Fantasy. I get super jealous, but then I'm like, I literally have no time to do this. Maybe someday when the kids are grown up. But I think my ranking of the old games are Final Fantasy, I think 3 is my favorite, and then 7. Are we going to do the Japanese name? So it's actually 6, and then 7, and then 4, which is Final Fantasy 2 in the US. And then I actually really like Final Fantasy 8. A lot of people don't like 8, but I'm into that. I like the whole arc of the story, and I played those for the story. And then 9, 10 I liked a lot too. A lot of them are just like represent certain eras in my life, so it's funny like trying to rank them. And 1, I even played 1 on NES.
Yes,
I love that one.
Me too, 100%.
I stopped after 10. I have no knowledge after 10. It's just stopped.
I think 10's the last one I played. 10 or 10-2. 10-2, I think it was called. Another one, I don't know. I can agree with you that every time I see a trailer for the games, I'm just like, they keep looking even better and better and better.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there it is.
Oh, there we go. I gave the right answer.
Oh, that's great.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I like the SNES era was really. I mean, Final Fantasy 7. I remember when I first like went over my friend's house to play that, and we were just like, holy shit, this is incredible.
Those cutscenes.
Yeah, the train scene in the beginning with the music. I had the soundtrack. I used to play it all the time.
It's epic. So epic. And it's funny because when I get to talk to people about like I started reading when I was a little bit older, I find out personally I was a fan of what I'm reading much before I thought I was a fan. You know what I mean? Playing video games or
right. I mean, storytelling, whether it's video games or movies or TV. I mean, I think people have their tastes, and it's just a different medium.
Yeah, and even my favorite band, Breaking Benjamin. Like if you listen to their music, man, it's like perfect for a sci-fi movie or like a new age kind of fantasy movie. But either way, I keep discovering more of those influences before I thought that they were influences. It's really cool. So it's been super incredible to talk to you about just every aspect, because I have these pre-thought questions, and getting the answers that I do, they're different with everybody. And I ask a lot of the same questions. And honestly, I think I'm going to keep doing that because the answers are so different and they lead down so many different paths. But it's been incredible. And I just wanted to really thank you. I know you're a busy guy. So thank your family for letting me pick your brain for a little bit, man.
No, I mean, again, it's super fun. I talked about like martial artists and having your crew. I also have found with SFF, the whole community is, even though everyone is spread out and international, there does seem to be, just like you were talking about Twitter, a real cool core that is super supportive, and between SPFBO and all the bloggers, judges, again, all that, the whole ecosystem there. I know people like to break apart trad and indies, but end of the day, we're all just nerds that love, fantasy and sci-fi and all this stuff in between. So I see the commonality in it. And I really, that's been really a cool part of it for me.
Yeah, I think, and on that point, I really hadn't thought too much about saying indie author or trad author until I was talking to Michael R. Miller, who is a very successful self-pub author. And I remember saying that to him, and he kind of he feels very passionately about not splitting them up. It's, you guys are authors, and I agree with that. I think the only part that there's certain aspects, certain topics, such as self-pub authors do everything themselves. So there is, you know what I'm saying? Of course, you know what I'm saying. You've done both. So when I'm speaking about those topics, I think that's the only time I feel as if I have to make a distinction, just because the processes could be different based on which route you are. Not that you're doing anything that's different. But I think you make a great point with that. Authors are authors, and you're all doing something that I think is incredible, and I find very fascinating to learn about. So, Alex, I just want to thank you again, man, for letting me pick your brain. And
anytime. No, I appreciate you having me here, Matt. It's been super fun hanging out, and all the people that stop by. It's fun seeing everyone.
Absolutely. I didn't throw them all out, but they're all here. So I really
I have a little bit more time if you have any questions here or anything.
Okay, let me pick through a couple. I know you've got the kids to feed, and I didn't want to go too far.
No, they can wait. They can wait. They're pretty self-sufficient now. I mean, you got a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an almost 9-year-old. They should be able to at least make some ramen or something.
There it is. All right. So, what are some? I like to ask this a lot. Is what are some goals that maybe you've thought of, as an author? I don't know. Just kind of, do you have a set time limit as far as? Well, I'm sure you do. Having a publisher. In fact, I'll go with that. Having a publisher, when you get a trilogy, right? They say, "Hey, I want you to write a trilogy." What is that time span like? Is it
so
set?
For me? It was a bit different with the combat codes, because a lot of them were already finished, and so they pushed them a lot closer together than they would a traditionally published that was not acquired from self-pub series, because it would require a lot more time between. But that being said, it did take some getting used to having deadlines. Because with trad, there's not only like the end goal deadline of obviously a potential release date, but you have to meet all the benchmarks in between, or you're at risk of pushing that back. And you don't want to do that because there's so many people involved. You feel pressure that if you don't meet your here's the copy edits that just got back to you. Can you please get them back by so-and-so date? And if you don't get it back by so-and-so date, then the next person in the line you're gonna hand it off to, whether it's your developmental editor or another copy editor for the next round, is gonna have to wait. And so it's kind of this machine that you want to meet those deadlines. Obviously that everybody I've interacted with has been, if I'm ever a little behind on anything, they're super understanding. But for my own, really? It's I want to stick to the schedule. So that's definitely something to get used to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because of course, you finishing your first draft is like just the beginning, really, of that story in its final
No,
product.
there's so much. There's like a bunch of copy edits, and then there's like what's called the first pass, which is like when it's actually formatted, and then you can't really tweak too much because it's already somewhat formatted. And they'll go through a few rounds of that. But it is kind of cool to see the team effort going into these things.
Yeah, that is incredible. I'm glad that you had the couple extra minutes because I wanted to get to your work in progress. Obviously, don't leak too much and I know you wouldn't. But what are you working on and kind of what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I got a few different. I can't give too much because we're actually on sub for a few things, but there's like 2 projects, and it's funny because I had like Combat Codes, which is really a science fantasy. I don't even, they classify it as science fiction in the bookshelves. Like if you go to Barnes and Nobles, it's
really
sci-fi. Yeah, but it's again, I almost think it's more science fantasy. But I have one that's almost pure fantasy that's ongoing. Yeah, yes. Sci-fi over there.
It does, yeah. It says, well, you can't see it, but it says science fiction, yep.
Which actually makes a really big difference in publishing as far as like how it's marketed, all that
really
stuff. Yeah. Even though it's the same publisher. But I have one that's really more pure fantasy that's like just to my roots of the stuff I used to love. And then I have one that's like way off in the sci-fi, almost more like mainstream techno thriller, Michael Crichton type of like Blake Crouch. I'm a big fan of Blake Crouch. So like one of my works in progress that goes fully in that direction. So really split in 2 different directions there.
That's exciting.
So yeah. And so those are 2 fires that are burning on sub right now. So we'll see what happens if anyone bites and go from there.
But you do have a book 3 coming out. When is that? What's the title? When does it come out?
So book 2 is Griever's Blood. That's already out. And so Blacklight Born is the final book in the Combat Code series, and that is out December, I don't know, 5th.
It is December,
I'm going to say 5th.
I think
I'm going to say December 5th, but don't take my word for it.
It's I think it's either December 4th or 6th. It's in the links that I'm posting and everything.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm excited for people to complete that series. And yeah.
So does it? I'm sure that it feels good. Like I just imagine myself writing a book 1 and then a book 2 and then finishing that trilogy has to feel. I mean, your first trilogy. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on the 3rd book, especially because like on a trilogy, there's a lot of words in there, a lot of characters, a lot of different narrative and narrative threads, and got to tie them all up. And it's like, again, keeping all that stuff straight for like a single manuscript is a little brain boggling, but for a trilogy, it's good. Again, that's good to have, editors, because they will catch things like you wouldn't believe, like they were traveling south when the sun was setting. And therefore like the river you mentioned would be the north. And yeah, stuff like that literally my brain would never even recognize anything like that, which is
that's like incredible.
Amazing. They track stuff throughout the whole series. So they'll be like, this character was referred to as this, and then like there was a little bit of a change here. And so yeah, the things that, and there would be readers, which are great, those type of readers that would be like so detail oriented, they would definitely know.
Wow. I can understand, like, if it was for me, I'm talking personally, because I would probably miss little subtle nuances, but those big ones, maybe I would definitely catch the big ones, but I can't see myself. I don't know. The editors, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, is incredible to find out.
No, geography is not my strong suit by any means. I know some authors, like, they actually will draw their own map and stuff. Mine, again, it's discovery writing, so I'll kind of just like, I guess there's a river over there to the west, and they're following it, and then there's a mountain range, and like they went over it, but I lose track of the geography.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And honestly, being somebody that is horrible with geography too, I could feel that inspiration come while you're writing. Oh, they're going through this part, creating that surrounding that world, those characters and where they are and how they're that makes total sense. And it has to feel good. I had to comment, having Richard Swan, this book kicks ass, literally and literarily.
There's a good one from him.
Yeah. So that's incredible. Yeah, he's a funny dude too, man.
He is. He's really funny.
He cracked me up. I got to talk to him a little while back, and the whole time it was just jokes, man. It was just so fun.
Yeah, he's an Aussie, right?
Yeah, yes. He lives there. He was born in the UK.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
But honestly, I wouldn't have known that because I'm terrible with accents. He actually said that on live, or else I'd have never known. But yeah, he's in Australia, and speaking of Australia, I think that's a place that is definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, no, me too. Never been.
The Great Barrier Reef. I hope it still exists when I go because I'd love to dive it.
Just watch out for the sharks.
Yeah, and the reef, right? They'll cut the crap out of you.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I haven't prepared any more other questions, and I've gotten such a well-rounded story that I'm really thankful for your time, and it's been fun, and I can't wait to have you back if you'll have me closer to
of course. All right.
The release of book 3.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Matt.
Of course. Well, hey, again, thank you, Alex, and all the guys and gals that were live. Thank you as well, and everybody that will watch it on replay, which will be the majority. Thank you as well. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And tonight at 8:30, I will be talking to Luke. I hope I say his last name right. Tarzian. He's the author of Adjacent Monsters.
Yeah, say hi to Luke for me.
I sure will. So until tonight at 8:30, we'll see you guys. And Alex, have a wonderful night, man.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Have a good one.